Tyler Cantrell with BlazerTV.com. We're here with Steve Irvine of the Birmingham News, covers UAB football, basketball, a little of everything UAB, and we're pretty comfortable. We just had some full moon, and we're here in the couch in the green and gold room. We're probably a little too comfortable to be doing an interview, but thanks for taking a little time with us, Steve.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Tyler.
Well, obviously 4 weeks into the football season, and Steve and I both predicted that UAB would be 7-5 and go to a bowl game. And there's been some struggles here early on. What's been your thoughts 4 weeks into the season?
Well, it's funny. I mean, the first 2 weeks, were tough. Obviously, they didn't show up, and for whatever reason, I don't know. But these last 2 weeks, you're talking about 2 plays away from being 2-2. Really, I mean, there's every game you can kind of I guess cut and paste, if they did this, did that, but when you lose basically on the last play of the game against East Carolina, I mean, if Shed makes that catch, which he came darn close to making it, they might win that game, and then a couple things happened the other day against Troy that could have changed the game, and I mean, it's tough. I mean, they could be sitting here 2-2, and things would look a lot better than 0-4. I think the one thing that jumps out to me, and I don't know why this is, but these last couple of years, you look at 2 years in a row now, they don't make the plays to win, and I don't know I don't know if you can put your finger on one thing, but you're talking about last year. How many weeks did you walk away saying they're one play away there? And good programs and good teams find ways to win those games, and struggling teams end up losing those games. So, they're going to have to find ways they're going to have to start playing like a mature team, because they are a mature team. That's the one thing that I can't quite put my arms around right now, is that it's an older team for the most part. They have some young areas, but it's an older team for the most part, and older teams generally, win these type of games.
Well, definitely, you look at the offense, obviously, it was centered around Brian Ellis coming back this year, and obviously he's had some injuries, and I want to talk a little bit about Jonathan Perry, who got his first career start against Troy this past Saturday. What was your thoughts on Perry and maybe where he could go as the future of UAB at quarterback?
Well, I thought he was sensational, and what I liked about the way he played the other day was he played with poise, and then you're put in a situation playing a rival, an in-state rival. First start, and not only the first start. Sometimes you lose sight of the fact that he hadn't played a game really in 3 years. Is where he's playing most of the game. So it's not only just your first start, but there's a lot of rust there, a lot of game rust there, and if you just walk into the like if I'm in Troy on business and I just say, hey, there's a game, I'm gonna go watch it, don't know anything about the other team, I would have never guessed from the way he carried himself that he was the guy playing his first game, and I think that's that's a huge compliment. I think. I mean, I think obviously there were some things he did that he'll do better next game and the next game after and that type of thing. But to me, and the thing I was looking for, watching him, was to see how he handled the situation. I thought he handled it great. I really did.
Well, one thing about it that I noticed was UAB really controlled the clock more with him at quarterback. Usually it's a fast-paced offense, but do you think that the play calling was just to let him get settled in, that we'll see the fast-paced UAB offense back, or do you think they continue to try to control the clock like they did against Troy?
Well, I think they'll try to continue to control the clock. I don't think the plays were that much different. The pace might have been a little different. The plays, I think, were pretty similar. But I think that, when you have a defense that's struggling, which obviously the defense is struggling, even though they've played better the last 2 weeks with forcing turnovers and that type of thing, but they're still giving up a lot of yards. And so I think that slowing it down a little bit, trying to control the clock a little bit, you have to do when you're struggling on defense. So I think you'll see that. And I don't think the play calling was that different. I just think maybe the pace was a little bit different.
Defensively, you mentioned still giving up some yards, but obviously, was it 9 or 10 turnovers in the last 2 weeks?
It's 10.
10 turnovers, and you've scored 2 touchdowns as well. Do you see this defense being able to continue to improve as they get more used to Tommy West's system, or what do you see this defense doing?
Oh, I think they'll continue to improve. I mean, I think, there's playmakers on the defense. It was hard to kind of tell, and you sort of take the Florida thing out of it, but the Tulane game, they just weren't making a lot of plays. There's playmakers. I think with every snap, literally with every snap, the defensive front is going to get better and better because they're going to get experience. And I think that's kind of what the problem's been. The back end, linebackers and safety, they've had some injury problems here and there, but I think you have some playmakers there. So I think they'll get better and better as the line continues to mature and kind of continues to get used to college football. Because you're talking about Elliot Hennigan and Connor Boyette are the only two that really are accustomed to playing college football coming into this year. And one of those guys, Boyette, is a true sophomore, and so I think that's going to help, and then I think once the better they get and the more they mature, the better chance the playmakers are going to have to make plays in the back end of the defense.
And just making a quick reference, we've talked about some of the struggles. Obviously, special teams have been a lot better this year. How much would it have helped UAB to have this special teams unit last year?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about last year they were literally two kicks away from being in a bowl. Because 6 wins would have got them in a bowl last year, and so what Ty Long did the other night, 3 or 4, and a tough situation. He missed the one, but he's 18-year-old true freshman, but no, I mean it would have made the world, and not only that, I mean we focus a lot on that because that was very visible. But the coverage units are a lot better. Obviously they have some huge threats returning ball. Even though Pat Shedd did a good job of returning last year, but I think they're more consistent on the returns this year and deeper. I mean you look at the other night. Nick Adams was a little banged up, and so they had two other guys, DJ Vincent and I don't remember who the other one was right now, returning kicks. And where last year, if you lost your first kick guy, you'd be like, oh, who do we put back there? So they have a better situation there, and just overall, it's a lot better. I think with putting Tyson Summers and John Wozniak doing the special teams, it looks like a better coach unit too. Not that last year Tyson Summers did some of it, but it was just a bunch of different guys doing it. But putting 2 guys coaching, I think it's helped a lot too.
Well, looking at the schedule coming up, it's not getting any easier. You mentioned games last year where you were 2 plays away. Mississippi State's coming to town Saturday. That last year they had a chance. They had a chance in the fourth quarter to beat the Bulldogs, but it's going to be a tough game this week. How tough is this upcoming stretch for an 0-4 football team?
Oh, it'd be tough for a 4-0 team. I mean, it's just a tough stretch, and that's the one thing when you look and you break down the schedule beforehand. You look at the first 4 games, and obviously Florida, you don't think you're going to win that. I mean, I'm not saying the players don't, but, if you're being realistic as a fan or looking in on it, they're probably not going to win that game. But, then you got Tulane, then you got a very beatable East Carolina team and a Troy team that you match up, you're even with. So you think, okay, well, you got to get a couple there to head into this tough stretch, and obviously they haven't done that. So it's going to be difficult. But, Mississippi State, even though they've lost to some good teams, they've shown some holes. Tulsa is good, and they're going to be good at Tulsa. But if they can move the ball on them in that game, if UAB can, then maybe they have a chance. And UCF hasn't been as strong as they appeared to be before the season. So even though it's a real tough stretch, it just doesn't quite look as tough as it did before the season started.
Well, you've written a lot about potential of an on-campus stadium, and we're 0-4 right now. Got to be in a pretty nice press box at Troy that is still relatively new, that obviously a lot of UAB fans probably looked across the way from where they were sitting and would like to have something like that here in Birmingham. How important is this decision coming up in November, and at what point do UAB football fans look at that decision in November and realize that's maybe more important than this football season?
I think it's definitely more important for the future of it. It's important. I mean, I think the important thing is that they have to get everything done and ready to go before November. I think they are. I mean, I think they're, from what I understand, obviously I don't sit in those meetings with them, but I think, they're going to have to figure out how they're going to pay for it and just different things about it that go from the board. And the one thing I will say is I've been covering this beat since 2005, and I've never seen the board be as enthusiastic about a situation like this, about UAB athletics, as they were in the what was that, October, or I guess that was in September, the last meeting. I mean, it was, you had some guys, John McMahon, who's the chair of the athletic committee, was basically saying, hey, let's get going, let's get started on this, and so I think that's very encouraging. I think that's very encouraging. But still, there's some I's to dot and T's to cross before they go back in November. But I would feel as if I were anybody associated with UAB, I think you should feel very optimistic about it right now.
Well, before we switch gears, talk a little bit of basketball before we wrap up with Steve. I want to ask you one conference-related question. Obviously, kind of a couple of big wins for the conference this weekend. Yeah, SMU gets a win over TCU, and a couple of weeks ago, Southern Miss beat Virginia, and there was another one this week. Who was the other upset this week? There was one more. Marshall beating Louisville. So, obviously had that as well. You think the conference as a whole is on the upswing in football?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I thought that coming in, and I do think that it would be very helpful for the conference if Houston can win out. Just because they're the undefeated team right now, not because it's Houston, but just because they're the undefeated team right now, it would help that. But I think as a whole, yeah. I think the conference is top to bottom has become better every year I've covered it. I think every year I've been following the league, because when I started following the league was when they switched. So and so I haven't. That's all I've seen as far as up close. But no, I think it's better. You knew that SMU was going to get better the day they hired June Jones, and UCF has struggled in a couple games this year, but that's a potential monster in this conference, I think, and Southern Miss is always going to be there, and with what Houston's done, it'll be interesting. Even though this is a huge year, it'll be interesting to see what Houston does without Case Keenum and maybe without Kevin Sumlin. You never know.
Yeah.
If they have that kind of year, does somebody come and get Kevin Sumlin? So even though this is a big year, I think they need to put a couple of these type of years, on top of each other to sort of, get the national respect.
I don't remember Houston not having Case Keenum. I thought he'd been there.
Yeah, I don't think they remember it.
I don't think they remember it either.
He was their first quarterback, I think, in 1800.
Obviously, the face of that program for several years. But looking forward to basketball a little bit. CUSA Media Basketball Days coming up in Dallas. Some publications are predicting maybe 3 teams to get in this year. Like we said about football, basketball's improved a little bit since the split and lost all the teams to the Big East a few years ago. UAB coming off conference championship in the regular season. What do you feel about this UAB squad and Mike Davis and company coming back this year?
Oh, I think it's potentially a very good team, but potentially is a key word. There's so many newcomers, and you don't lose 2 guys like Aaron Johnson and Jamar Sanders and not having a huge adjustment. And not just because their ability but just what they meant and who they were to that team. And so it'll be on paper they look pretty good. If you look at them, but almost everybody out there has some sort of question mark next to their name. Even Cameron Moore is as good as Cameron Moore's was last year. He didn't defend the post well. So even he has a huge question mark next to him. Even guys that have proven themselves a little bit, have something else to prove. So it'll be interesting. I think early on it could be, they could. I don't know if struggle is the right word, but they're going to have to find themselves pretty early on, and they're going to have to find themselves playing a tough schedule. That's they don't do things easy, this year. They have to go on a road for some tough games and play some tough teams here. Creighton. They play teams that are tough. It's one of those things where they play tough teams, but people don't really know they're tough teams. So if you lose to Creighton, people are going, "Oh, you're doing losing to Creighton." Well, Creighton's a pretty good program, pretty good team. So that's
won the NIT last year, didn't they?
Yeah, but people don't know that.
Yeah.
No, they didn't win the NIT. That was Wichita State who won the NIT. But I think Creighton went to one of those other tournaments.
They were pretty far in the tournament. So you got a couple of good teams coming in.
Yeah, so you have that, but it'll be fun. It'll be a fun kind of journey to watch to see how much they change from day one to until the time they get to Memphis or at least to get to conference play. How much they change. It'll be interesting to see that.
Is this Mike Davis's deepest team?
I think so. Yeah, it's quality depth and not only quality depth, but he has. It seems like he has a more traditional team here. You have guys that play point guard. Well, these guards are a little different, but you have guys who play post, guys who are power forward, guys who are small forward. You don't have to sort of mix and match. You don't have to say to Jamar Sanders, "Hey, I know you're a wing, but when we take a couple guys out, I'm going to put you in the post. You know, I mean, things like that. You know, I mean, you don't have that. Or, you know, you have – it's a little more traditional. But I think, 1 through 12, 1 through 13, I think I would call it as the deepest.
And you remember a few years ago there was about 8 players on the whole bench. So it's definitely going to be good for UAB fans to see the depth. Obviously, one player is still in question right now. Had a little bit of a transcript issue. I believe it's Hoopy Jones. Mm-hmm. Have you heard any updates on that and maybe his status?
No updates. It's it's a NCAA thing, so they're not gonna be in a hurry. So it's just a matter of with this clearinghouse issue and matter of what's going to happen to that. But the latest I've heard, they're still waiting.
And one thing about that issue is even if he doesn't get to play and has to sit out a year till next year, definitely this year's team would be able to withstand that blow with the depth they have better than in years past.
I think so. Yeah, I definitely think so. Now they need him and they could use him, but I think that there's if some other guys, because he was going to be used for the point guard depth. Because they're not going to have an Aaron Johnson this year where you can just throw him out on the court and say, okay, I want 38 minutes from you, and you can't come out. Quincy Taylor is I think is going to be a good point guard for him, but he's not that kind of guy right now. So he was going to be part of that. But if a guy like Ja'Cory Tyler or Casey Whitaker can fill those minutes instead of what they thought Hoopy might get if he's not eligible, then I think they'll be able to withstand it. Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk more basketball with Steve, hopefully in a few weeks. And but Hoopy Jones, I mean, you got to be excited about a basketball player named Hoopy. I mean, that's a very exciting proposition to get on the court. Last question, just another general question about the conference. Here we are 4 weeks in football season with the new television deal. Do you think that the new deal with Fox, do you think there's been increased exposure for the league? Do you think it's working out 4 weeks into the deal?
Early on, I think it has. Yeah, I think it has. I think it's been more consistent. I think the thing with the ESPN deal was it wasn't real consistent, and you'd get crazy days and crazy times, and not the flexibility. See, what I want to see, I think the true test is it's hard to tell right now, even though I think it's helped. But the true test is, will they adjust to showcase the league? I mean, for example, like in basketball. Couple years ago or a few years ago now, when UAB and Houston played that game, it was 101 to 99 or whatever it was here. They were the second and third best teams in the conference. They weren't on TV. They were showing whoever on that night, and I think that's the key to it. They need to adjust as they go. And a couple years ago, another example, the year UTEP and UAB ended the season at UTEP. UTEP's your champion. Yeah. And UAB was trying to make a case to get in the tournament, and that's not on TV, And they showed, I think, the East Carolina and Memphis or something, and which was a nothing game at the time. So I think that's going to be, a true test. I think it's been better so far, but I think you have to have a little more time to sort of study it to see, how much better or worse or what it's like,
Okay. Well, Steve, we thank you for your time. If you like Steve's work, most UAB fans already know him really well. You can follow him on AL.com. Pretty much anything that comes out about UAB sports is going to be this guy. If you're in the Birmingham area, you can pick up a copy of the Birmingham News. And Steve's really branching out with technology. Got a Twitter account now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I didn't know what that was. I still don't know the proper way to use it or say it. So. But, yeah, I'm getting better. I put my typewriter up finally and got to put that white out away. And so, yeah, I'm working on that.
So you got several different ways to follow Steve and keep up with his work and everything that is UAB. Steve, we thank you for taking the time with us, and hopefully we'll see you again in a couple of weeks.
All right, Tyler. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.